What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, we're typically talking about business, finance, and real estate, and today we're going to be talking about how to invest into real estate in 2021 with no money. So if you're watching the video, then that is obviously because on some level you have interest into getting into real estate investing. Okay? You want to make money through the real estate industry, but maybe you're somebody that thinks that you need a lot of money, you need 20% down to get a conventional mortgage to get into the real estate game, you need a bunch of knowledge, you need to know exactly how to flip a property like they do on HGTV, or whatever the case is, and I just want to make a real simple video talking about exactly how you can actually break in to the real estate industry into 2021 and really moving forward and make a lot of money. Because the reality of it is you don't need all of that stuff. And I thought a long time ago that I did as well. When I got into the real estate industry in 2015, I thought that I needed a bunch of money. I thought I needed a bunch of knowledge. I thought I needed all these different things that ultimately I didn't end up needing, okay? So, I was once exactly where you're at, right? And now fast forward about 6 or so years, I've flipped probably 500 houses, okay? I'm a real estate agent. We've done well over $100 million worth of real estate. And again, I'm young, right? I'm 25 years old, and I'm telling you right now that if I can do it, so can you. So if you're brand new to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would just consider subscribing by the end of the video if you get value from the video. And also, if you haven't already, just do me a massive favor and just smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the first way to get into the real estate industry in 2021 with no money, and that is wholesaling real estate. So I talk about wholesaling real estate quite a bit on my channel, and the reason that I do is because I really believe in it. I really believe that it is probably one of the best ways to get into real estate as a beginner, as a newbie, somebody that really doesn't have a lot of connections, a lot of money, maybe you don't have a really good credit, or you just don't have much credit history in general, because maybe you're a little bit younger or something like that. I really believe wholesaling can be that perfect gateway to getting into the real estate investing industry and then ultimately, figuring out what you really want to do from there and kind of scaling from there. So really quick, for those of you that aren't familiar with what wholesaling real estate even is, I'm just going to break it down for you. And if you are familiar, just go ahead and go to this timestamp right here if you already know exactly what wholesaling is. So wholesaling real estate is basically where you go out and you find a property below market value, and you basically will put an offer in on that property, and you'll get the property under contract, and you're going to act at this point in the transaction as the buyer. But instead of actually buying that property, what you're gonna do is during your due diligence period, during your inspection period, you're basically gonna go and you're gonna find another cash buyer, maybe a flipper, maybe a rehabber, maybe somebody that is a landlord that is just looking for rental properties, and you're gonna take the property to them and you're gonna pitch it to them, buying it basically from you. And basically what's gonna happen is they're gonna buy it at a little bit of a higher price than you got it under contract for with the seller. So let's just say theoretically you got a property under contract for $100,000 that once it was all fixed up and once it was real nice and whatever the case is, it was worth $200,000. So you got it fairly well below market value. Now you take that property and you basically go and you sell it to a cash buyer for about $110,000, let's say. So therefore you make about a $10,000 what we call assignment fee. It's basically just like a finder's fee for going out and actually finding the property and giving it to the cash buyer on a silver platter. So you're never actually buying the property, okay? You're just finding the property, you're getting it under contract, and then you're reselling essentially just the contract to another cash buyer before you actually close on the property. So it's real simple, and definitely don't overcomplicate it. I know a lot of people will typically be like,
yeah, but Austin, what contract do I use? Or Austin, what happens if I can't find a buyer? Or Austin, what are all the nitty-gritty details and how do I actually go about doing it?
Again, what I would say is just not to overcomplicate it, okay? I talk about this a lot on my channel, so feel free to go check out other videos on my channel. Also, at any point throughout the video, feel free to just drop a comment down below, and I would love to answer any questions you have on the actual logistics of wholesaling real estate. I also have a course down below that I'm running a sale on right now, so feel free at any point to check that out as well, and I'll make sure to leave a link down below on that. So one of the other best parts, in my opinion, about wholesaling real estate is you don't need a lot lot of money to do this. In fact, you really don't need any money to do this, okay? Instead, you just need a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, which, in my opinion, is probably the right way to go in the beginning anyways, so you're not spending a bunch of money on something that you're not even sure that you're gonna pursue long term. So with one deal, I mean, think about it. If you just went out and got one single deal, you could make probably about $10,000, okay? That's a pretty average number in the wholesaling community throughout the entire country, okay? And that is ultimately why you're watching the video, right? Because you wanna change your life. You know, whatever you're doing right now, maybe you don't like what you're doing, right? Maybe you're working a 9 to 5 that you don't really enjoy, right? Or maybe you're working some other side hustle that you're just not making as much money as you potentially want to make. Or maybe you just want another side hustle altogether. And in my humble opinion, I think wholesaling real estate is that exact thing. It is a side hustle that can pay you very quickly and a decent amount of money. Because basically what you're doing is you're just providing a solution to the marketplace, right? You're going in and you're providing a solution to the seller because they need to ultimately just sell the property. They need to get rid of it for whatever reason. And then you're providing a value add to the buyer, right? Because the buyer, therefore, is not having to go out and actually find their next deal. They're able to just get a deal brought to them that they now can go flip it and make money on or add to their rental portfolio. So again, it is a very lucrative way, but also a way where you're actually providing real value in the marketplace, you know, compared to maybe a lot of the other side hustles that people are talking about, which in my opinion, aren't really providing that much value. Now, the second best way to go ahead and get into real estate investing in 2021, really without any money, okay? And I'm gonna kind of dive into this a little bit. So before you click out of the video, you're like, Austin, you're full of crap. Okay, I promise you, I'm not full of crap. We're doing this on a day-to-day basis every single day. I've shown a lot of people how to do this, and I wanna show you too. And that is ultimately just going ahead and flipping the actual house. So essentially, you're just remodeling the house or you're renovating the house and basically adding value to it. So this is pretty much the same thing as number one, which is wholesaling, except for you're actually gonna buy the property this time. And now, this is the part where you're like, Austin, but you said that I didn't have to have any money, so what in the world are you talking about? How am I gonna buy the property, okay? Well, I promise you there's a lot of ways to buy a property where you don't have to put 20% down, and you can definitely get into the property and buy it and renovate it and make a good profit. So here, essentially what you're doing is you're gonna find a deal, again, below market value, that needs a little bit of work, right? And ultimately, for whatever reason, it's run down, it's outdated, whatever the case is, you're gonna lock it up under contract, you're gonna run all your numbers, you're gonna do all of that. Again, I talk a lot about that in other videos on my channel, so for the purpose of this video, we're just gonna keep it real simple. But what you do then is you actually buy the property, right? You're gonna renovate it, and by renovating it, you're basically gonna create a bunch of additional value on that exact property. You're gonna create what they call equity in the actual property, and then you're gonna sell it on the market, and you're basically gonna make a profit. So how you actually buy the property with no money down, there's definitely more than one way actually to go ahead and start in flipping real estate without any money or experience, okay? So for the purpose of this video, I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit simple, and I'm just gonna talk about probably the top 2 or 3 ways that you can actually pull this off. And one of the first ways that I personally like to do, and we do this all the time, is to use a hard or a private money lender. Now, typically a hard or private money lender will lend on a property because it is secured by the actual real estate itself, right? So they're gonna look at the deal the same way that you looked at the deal to make sure that it is a good deal, right? Because their money, assuming for whatever reason you didn't pay them back, is secured by the actual real estate itself, right? So basically, once they evaluate the deal, they make sure it's a good deal for them. Obviously, it's a good deal for you. Then what a lot of times they'll do, and you might have to call a couple of different hard or private money lenders to find the one that'll do this for you, but a lot of times they'll actually loan 100% of the actual renovation cost itself, and they'll loan 100% of the actual purchase of the property, and you just have to come up typically with a little bit of a down payment. But again, this is where you can get a little bit creative with how you actually come up with that little bit of the down payment. So there's a lot of people that'll tell you ultimately not to use a hard or a private money lender and just borrow a bunch of money from your friends or your family or whatever the case is, and I'm not a big proponent of that. I'm really not a big proponent of borrowing money from friends or family in general. So what I would do is I would just borrow a little bit of money. If you have a friend or a family member that believes in you and they believe in the deal, maybe just borrow just a little bit of money for the down payment for the hard or private money lender, right? But again, the hard or private money lender, you know, they're in the business of this, right? So it's just strictly business for them, and they're gonna be funding typically, if you get a hold of the right one, 100% of the rehab or the renovation costs anyways. So you really just have to figure out how to come up with that little bit of the down payment. But again, there's a lot of ways that you can even do that, and I don't really wanna give you too much advice on this, so definitely consult, with somebody other than me, because I'm not an expert when it comes to this, okay? Again, this is just what I would do if I were to go do it all over again, essentially. But another thing you could do is you could just wholesale a couple of houses and make a little bit of money, and then use that money as a down payment when you go to actually flip your next property. So typically you're only having to put anywhere from 10 to 20% down with a harder private money lender, and you're not having to actually come out of pocket for any of the renovation costs. So, when you're looking at it from a cash on cash return, I mean, there's basically, again, assuming you get the right deal, assuming you have all your ducks in a row and you really did all of your due diligence, you did all your homework, the cash on cash return here is gonna be probably pretty crazy, right? I mean, on a $100,000 deal, I mean, if you put $10,000 or $15,000 down on that, there's a pretty high likelihood, again, depending on the area, depending on whatever the case is, that you're probably gonna make, I don't know, $20,000 or $30,000 from flipping the property. So, you're doubling or tripling that initial down payment just by going ahead and flipping the property, again, theoretically. Now again, there's a lot of other ways you could probably come up with the down payment, okay? So, what I would encourage you to do here is to get real creative, right? And I could probably go and talk about this all day long, but, another way that you could do this too is you could find the deal, okay? Because, maybe you got started in wholesaling or whatever the case is, and instead of going to a harder private money lender, maybe you just take the deal to an actual flipper and you say, hey, I'm gonna give you the deal at my cost, at the cost that I actually got it under contract for, but instead of, assigning it to you and making 10 or 20 grand up front, I just want a little bit of equity in the actual project, and I want to shadow you and learn how to actually flip a property, right? So again, I would just implore you to get really creative with this. I think a lot of people, they look at the real estate industry, they really look at every industry for that matter, and ultimately they don't get creative, right? And they let fear get in the way, they let FOMO get, I mean, there's all these different things that they let get in the way, and I just wouldn't let any of that get in the way, and I would just go all out and take massive action. In life, you always have to take that first step, right? You never actually just get to the top of the staircase without taking the first step, right? And then without taking the second step, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and so on, okay? So don't be one of those people in life that has, big goals and big aspirations, but ultimately you don't ever take action, right? Because the reality of it is, what I've noticed that a lot of people like to say is that, the wealthy people got lucky, right? And the rich people got lucky, and the people that are flipping all this real estate, they just got lucky, and they were born into a bunch of money. And, to be honest with you, from what I've seen in the industry, it's hardly ever the case. I mean, for the most part, people are self-made in the real estate industry, and there's actually a lot of statistics on that. I want to say that like 9 out of every 10 self-made millionaire and billionaire in the real estate world actually, again, they were self-made, meaning they didn't inherit any money, they didn't come from a bunch of money or anything like that. They actually started right where you're at right now, watching the video, right? And basically they figured it out, they got creative, and they made it happen. So obviously there's a lot more to it, right? And there's a lot of things that you've got to take into consideration when, getting into the real estate industry. But again, it's all real simple, right? It isn't complicated. I mean, I'm just talking about the little stuff like running the numbers and making sure that you've got all your ducks in a row and stuff like that. And again, I talk a lot about that on my channel. So definitely, go check out my YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it, and watch, some of my videos, and maybe, hopefully, they'll answer any questions that you have. And again, if they don't, then definitely drop a comment in the comments section below, and I would love to see what kind of activity we could get going on down there. We're definitely here. I'm here to support you, and I know that everybody down there in the comments section is there to ultimately support each other in 2021, getting in to the real estate industry. So guys, with that, I really appreciate you watching the video. If you haven't already, again, I've got a course down below. I've got a couple of other links down below, like a Webull link, where if you sign up and you deposit $100, you'll get up to 2 free stocks that are valued, I believe, up to $1,200. So definitely go check that. It's just essentially free money. I'd really appreciate it. Also, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.